Thank you. Morning, everyone. Welcome to the second last general meeting of this term of council. It's the ordinary meeting for the month of February, and I'd like to welcome everybody here. We've got a few people sitting in the gallery, and I'd like to just, the nominations and everything else have closed for the candidacy for the mayoral and council candidates, and there is one of our current sitting councillors that will go through unopposed. So Councillor Potter, congratulations, you will do 3 consecutive terms, so well done, congratulations on your work. Okay, could I call up Mr Bonhoff to Pastor Glenn to do today's... Oh, don't have to do it. Yeah, so we've just got an apology from Mayor Otto, just to accept that before we pass over to Pastor Glenn. No, thank you.
Good morning, Acting Mayor Gavin and councillors and staff. Good to be here again representing the ministers of South Burnett. I was just looking at something the other day about George Washington, whom you all know, and back in those days, a couple hundred years ago, the most difficult thing when you painted somebody was to paint their arms and legs, you know, get the proportions correct and whatever. And so often you will see paintings of people in those days like George Washington with their arm behind their back. The reason is they charged for each arm and leg that they painted. Thus we have the saying, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. That's exactly where it comes from. And I thought to myself, I wonder what it costs councillors and mayors to be in positions of authority, CEOs, staff, you know, because these days we have much more freedom to criticise people than we used to, don't we? People come out and say all sorts of things, sometimes as unjustified. As a matter of fact, in my Australia Day address at Mergen a few weeks ago, I mentioned that when Australia was settled, there were 150 crimes punishable by hanging. In that case, all of you would have been hung at least once, and probably Gavin would have been hung twice. But you see, we've changed from that, and we have great freedom now to criticise and say things about people, often justified and often unjustified. And I thought to myself, what is the actual definition of freedom? And how does it apply to you, particularly the councillors and to the mayor? And the popular opinion is that we are free to do whatever we want. But you know what true freedom is? True freedom is the power to do what you should. Okay? It's the power to do what you should. Because not everybody has the power to do what they should. So you have the freedom within this chamber to do what you should. Proverbs 16 says this, to humans belongs the plans of the heart, but to the Lord comes the proper answer of the tongue. If you want to know what is the right thing to do, ask God. I want to, because this is still, in a sense, the beginning of the year, I want to pray now for you, and I want to use the prayer that Billy Graham prayed and was published in the Saturday Evening Post in 2008. And I thought I would use part of that as my closing prayer. Let's pray. Lord God, we each have our hopes and expectations for the year that is ahead of us, but you alone know what it holds for us, and only you can give us the strength and the wisdom we will need to meet its challenges. So help us to humbly put our hands into your hand and to trust you and to seek your will for our lives during this coming year. So Lord, indeed, may the Mayor and councillors who are elected next March and all the staff here at the South Burnett Regional Council place their hopes, plans and future in your hands. And Lord, may those who run for office but who are not elected accept that this is your good and perfect will. We thank you for the selfless service which each has given to the people of the South Burnett over the past years. May each person here today and those who are here in the future be subject to your authority. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Just closing on a personal note, I realise that the next time I will be here, some of you won't be, because there's an election coming up before I'll be here again. And I want to thank you, if I don't see you here again, I want to thank you because everyone has been very courteous to me every time I've been here. You've respected me, and not only that, I thank you for your friendship, because I regard each one of you as a friend. And I wish each of you God's blessing in the future, whatever that may be. And for those I won't see again, I'll miss you. Okay? Farewell, and may God go with you.
Wonderful, appreciative words there, Pastor Glenn, and every minister and everyone that comes in here, I appreciate every time they come, but on a personal note, you're my favourite because you have very wise words every time you speak here. So thank you on behalf of everybody else here. If anyone wants to thank Pastor Glenn individually, they can. I'll give that time, but thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on now to the recognition of the traditional... Oh, sorry, Councillor Duff, yes.
Well, yeah, I just want to thank Pastor Glenn. I've had a long association with Pastor Glenn through the Mergen ministry. It was really funny when I was first elected. He told me he didn't vote for me, and I was really horrified. And he actually doesn't live in our area. He's actually in the Gympie Regional Council, so that was fine. So that's just. But on a serious note, now I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge our elders, both past, present, and emerging. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Schumacher, do you
I was just going to say, thank you, Pastor Glenn, for your really kind words. Often when we do have a prayer at the beginning of the meeting, for me, some meetings have been really hard, really tough, and you walk in here, as some days actually feeling really quite sick, to be honest, because you know there's no easy decision to be made about some of the things discussed. And I really do appreciate when you do take the time to give us some words. It is always a nice little encouragement at the start of each meeting, and to know that you're not alone, and that God and a higher power can certainly help you forward has really been quite helpful at times. So thank you very much for your support over this term. It's been lovely to get to know you as well.
Okay, all good. So we'll move on then to the declaration of interest. Is there any declaration of interest, councillors? All good, clean sheet, that's great. So deputations and petitions, we don't have anything. We'll move on to item 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of January 2024. And the officer's recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of January 2024 be received and the recommendation therein be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded. Councillor Erkins, questions, comments, councillors? Go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. 8, notices of motion. So good to see none. 9, business outstanding, 9.1. The officer's recommendation is that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, seconded. Councillor Erkins, questions? Councillor Duff?
So through you, Acting Mayor, I ask this question every time, and I'm just going to ask it once more about on page 123 about the Windra, the piggery and the upgrades to Morgan's Road and to Kratzman's Road and to the Mergen-Gayndah Road that are meant to happen before that piggery continues to expand.
GM Aaron? Leanne?
Through you, Acting Mayor, it's one I'll take on notice with Leanne to go back to the DA team to see what those conditions are. I think Daryl had provided a response previously to that.
Yeah, but it was meant, they're meant to do, all, like I'm getting complaints continuously from the locals saying that they're doing a lot more with their pigs, and they have, you know, they've reached the part where they're meant to be upgrading the roads, and Daryl did say that they were on track to do it. They were just waiting, I think, until the Mergen-Gayndah Road got done, and then they were going to do it. But that was would have been 12 months ago.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
If that's okay, Councillor, we'll take that on notice and have a chat with the DA team. I'm not across the project. I know I'm aware of the project, but with Daryl's absence at the moment, we'll chase it up.
And if you could provide a response in the next council meeting, would that be fine? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you. Just in relation to page 111, Growing Regions Program Round 1 grant opportunity. I know we put that forward sort of late last year, and I just wondered how, I think the application had to be in, and I just wondered what the process was from here. If you could provide an update, Manager Leanne.
Yep, certainly. Thank you. Yes, we worked very hard and we were able to submit an application in this round. So at this stage, we haven't received any further advice, and I'm unaware of when the announcement will be on this application, but fingers crossed. Yeah, we will have something, I would imagine around September, October is, if I recall, that was sort of the time in the guidelines when we spoke to the department. So it will be some time yet for them to review all the applications. But yes, so we did put an expression of interest in, and then we were invited to actually go to full application. So the full application has been submitted.
Thank you. Just from an advocacy point of view, CEO Mark, I was thinking perhaps we should write to our local members and advise them that we've actually put forward that application, and offer to make representation if they'd like to see the plans for the rural redevelopment, or that we would meet with them and discuss that. Yeah, I think that would be good. And a question for you, CEO Mark, just with these resolutions, some of them are quite dated or in action. I just wondered, do they roll over to the next council, or will you sort of clean it up? And
the short answer is yes, they roll over, and it's with this little period now is actually going through. It will be in this first quarter. It probably won't happen before the March meeting, given the closeness of them, but seeing which ones have been done and getting all those notes updated.
yeah,
Correct.
fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Any other questions on that, councillors? If not, we'll go to the. Yep.
Oh, my apologies, CEO Joe. I just wanted to ask, we also moved a motion on the 23rd of August 2023, just in relation to meeting with the Acting Director General, Linda Dove, at that time, from the Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water, to provide a deputation with regards to the criticality of South Burnett's water challenges. I just wondered, we'd also talked about inviting the department out to give them a tour, and we had been provided with some contacts after the Bush Council's conference. I just wondered, CEO Mark, if you're able to provide any update as to where that is at.
Look, Darren, I'm just trying to think about. We've had several technical groups and different people through. We haven't. With the attempts to meet at that high level within the department, we haven't got a meeting. So, but yeah, I'm just not personally aware of which ones have come through, and we know we've got another batch coming through in April. So yeah, so it's ongoing, and it's certainly not lost. But yeah,
We moved that back in August last year after the Bush Councils to
Yep.
try to have that deputation. But Linda Dove did offer to meet with us, so perhaps.
Yeah, we spoke to her at LGIQ conference as well, and certainly happy if I take it on notice, and we'll bring back something to the March meeting, and then that way, not
Yeah.
shooting off the hip.
It's just such an urgent issue. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so no other comments. We'll go to the motion moved by councillor Hench and seconded by councillor Erkins that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll go to 10, portfolio, corporate governance, strategy, people, culture, communication and media, finance and sustainability, ICT and business systems, community representation and advocacy for the 2032 Olympics and Paralympics. 10.1, the officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council resolves to submit the following resolutions to the National General Assembly of Local Government. Now, Mr CEO, I'll hand over to you for guidance here.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. This one is the first of the reports. So, Joe, basically we're chasing ideas. The attached documents there, so it doesn't have to be a fully worded resolution today, but if we can get some topics and we can start to work up the wording and then bring it back for final endorsement.
So we'll open the floor. There's lights on everywhere. So we'll start with Councillor Potter. Any recommendations on your behalf?
Yeah, I'd actually like to put something in there with regards to help with our water supplies, because we've got a lot of the smaller villages and towns, and even with the Kingaroy supply the way it is, we do need help. And I'm wondering whether this is something we can ask the federal government, because to me it's a necessity. It's not a want. It's a need, and it's a necessity for every single town to have potable water.
Thanks, councillor, and we're all aware, everyone that's running for council, water security for the South Burnett and the whole of the South Burnett, not just part of, is high priority. So, yeah, I don't disagree with that. Councillor Erkins?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd just like to know, I know during some of our budget discussions that we reduced the white fleet. Can you tell me how many we reduced? Am I asking this in the right place? Oh, I thought this was a finance.
No.
Okay, I'll leave and get up in the next one then.
We'll take that on notice, councillor, if you can just switch your light off.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
good to see you keen. Councillor Duff?
So I've sent through to Tiana the motion that went to the to the Federal Coalition Government Conference from the State Council of the LNP, and it was to do with the wind farms and solar farms. And I've got the dot points, and I would like our council to send this through to the ALGA conference, and I'll just read them quickly. Number one, a bond is held. So this is we commit to a moratorium of all large-scale wind, solar, pumped hydro and related transmission projects until 1, a bond is held from start of project with guaranteed finance in place to cover decommissioning and full project removal, disposal and rehabilitation costs at end of life. 2, appropriate regulations are in place to protect threatened and endangered species. 3, large-scale renewable projects are subject to full state government approval processes and be made impact accessible, not code accessible. 4, an appropriate land access framework to protect the environment, cultural heritage and existing land uses is established. 5, minimal impact upon existing ratepayers is negotiated. 6, Australia's food security is protected by prohibiting large-scale renewable projects on prime agricultural land. See the Paris Agreement, Article 2(1)(b). 7, all large-scale renewable projects comply with the same regulations that apply to agricultural and mining. And 8, large-scale renewable projects are added as a trigger to the EPBC Act. And 9, a mandatory code of conduct is established to govern the renewable energy sector and renewable energy proponents' conduct with affected communities. So that's just mirroring what the LNP are calling for, a moratorium. And I'd like our council to do the same, because I think that it's an opportunity now to try and I'm concerned about where our region is heading, because I know in the Wide Bay Plan it's going to be covered in wind farms and solar farms, but I want to protect our food and fibre industries and try and get some good guidelines around it before we progress. So that's why I'm asking if this one could be included. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. There's a wonderful amount of work that you've put into there to bring that resolution to. So you've done there's some big resolutions in there. So good work on the effort that you put into that resolution.
Just firstly, if I may, Acting Mayor, the first part of it, council isn't party political, so the LNP state government, that needs to be taken out, please.
Sorry, I've just copied that one, put it through, but I just wanted to change it to our council.
Okay, Councillor Henson.
Acting Mayor, thank you, Councillor Duff. That's well put together. But may I suggest that in that you've mentioned the ag and the mining sector, but you add the gas sector as well, because they come under guidelines that's similar, that's not under the wind farm sector as well, and the good old Code 23 that's talked about. And also I'd like, if it's feasible with you, Councillor Duff, to add another point in there that councils also be consulted before the end process, because here we are sitting at projects now, and those projects have been in the South Burnett region talked about out there in the rural sector for the past 5 years. Council now, as we all know in this chamber, only gets notified within the last section of it. So in that, I'd like to see, and it added that councils, local councils, and especially this council, with the renewable race that's on within our area, gets notified at the start of the project when these companies come in and do the negotiating, and rather than all this under the table deals and confidentiality, we don't know a thing. Council knows nothing until the end, and we start negotiating with our road infrastructure guys at the end of it. So I'd like Councillor Duff, if you're agreeable to it, to add another point in there that local councils or the South Burnett Regional Council also gets notified of any prospective developments in that same sector.
100% happy to add that. Thank you.
So Councillor Hanchin, if you just want to work with Tiana here, so you've got local council be notified at the start of the project. Do you want to have anything added to?
Local councils be notified prior to any consultation or along with the consultation process with the people involved, be it the rural property owners, because that's where it starts.
Hang on, let's just go work with Tiana here. So to be noted, council be notified prior to consultate to the, how do you want this worded? So if we work through it slowly, it's over to you.
Local councils be notified along with all interested parties in the negotiation process. Local governments be notified along with all interested parties prior to the consultation, prior to consultation start of the project. You can notify all interested parties prior to consultations. Of any renewable projects within their regions. Yeah, and if I may elaborate on that, I've just said it, so I'll sound like a broken record, but as we know in this chamber, we sit here and we're the last ones to get notified, council and councillors and our management staff, and then all of a sudden we've got to sit down and they seem to think that they have you under the thumb because we're the last ones to get notified of anything. So, thank you, Councillor Duff.
So we've got that added in for the gas as well there, T, did we? Yeah. So that's good. Councillor Shoemaker? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So can I just suggest a better wording would be local councils be notified prior to any negotiations with partners. I don't know if we're notified first before they go out negotiating. So we're basically first to know and then they do that, if that suits you, Councillor Hensham. I think it means the same thing, just a little more clearer.
Yeah, look, I'll just throw some oversight on that, if I may, Mr. CEO, and please pull me up if I'm out of line here. I'm a rural property owner west of here that have experienced this for the last 10 years with the Cooper's Gap one and the Reds one. Now, particular parties come into our region in 2019 and started to negotiate, and we're in 2024, and as you know in this chamber, we've had meetings here with relevant industries and the people in the renewable sector over the last 12 months. That's been going on out there for 5 years. And it's all confidentiality stuff for the people who agreed to sign. So it starts out there. And I've been asked many times, how can we stop it? Council certainly can't stop it, but it starts out there in the paddock when the people have to sign that piece of paper. And I've experienced firsthand where they come and true to word, put a piece of paper there and a pen there. That's what's going on out there. So council needs to be in that loop, and how that's done. Companies, they're out there now. They're out there 15 to the dozen, knocking on people's doors. I just got a phone call as I walked in this morning from a gentleman north of here, beside himself about, what should the conversations be with them. That's where it starts, but council's got to be on that ground floor with them as well.
Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Good conversation, certainly. Supportive of the motion, Councillor Duff, and really do agree with the mandatory code of conduct. I think that is, if I read that right here, a mandatory code of conduct established to govern the renewable energy sector and renewable energy proponents' conduct within affected communities. That really is what we've been standing with the LGAQ and ALGA actually advocating for these, certainly since the beginning of this term, is that we set down some clear guidance and framework, and it does not make sense to duplicate that when the Gas Commission could easily be extended to include the Gas and Renewable Energy Commission, and to really eliminate some of the cowboy behaviour that Councillor Henson is talking about. So I know the Premier spoke to that at the LGAQ conference around trying to use some of the Gas Commission's framework as a regulatory sort of function, and certainly I think that mandatory code of conduct is a really great idea. So thank you for bringing that forward. Just looking at the paper, just a few things I thought were really interesting. The theme of the ALGA conference being building community trust, and they've talked about a paper that was established in 2019, which I'm going to look up. It's called The Conversation, that indicates that Australia's trust in politicians, our political representatives and democracy has hit an all-time low. Reports indicate that fewer than 41% of Australian citizens are satisfied with the way democracy works in Australia, down from 86% in 2007. It goes on to talk about public satisfaction has fallen particularly sharply since 2013, when 72% of Australian citizens were satisfied. I just think, and there's a lot of talk here about trust in the agenda, how trust is hard earned, it's really easily lost, and it's difficult to re-establish. And certainly I think from our front row seat of being involved in council over these last 4 years, certainly I think the information provided here and the opportunity to sort of unpack this problem at the ALGA conference is a really good one, because certainly I think on the ground there's often a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication, and many reasons why community members shouldn't perhaps trust us as their representatives or don't trust us. It's an interesting theme, and I think perhaps as a council we should consider how we could, I'm not sure, I sort of was rallying some ideas around, but you know, as a new councillor, really your only support when issues come to you is the OIA or the CCC when they write to you and tell you you've done the wrong thing. I'm wondering if we shouldn't factor emotion. I don't think even the how you want to be a councillor training is comprehensive enough. And I think while there are some courses that QTC and alike do around financial obligations as councillor, I think there should be much more. I just feel maybe we're often thrown in people off the street, and I would never see myself as a councillor as a politician, but people do see you that way. And I think the insights in this report demonstrate that you really are diving into a bit of a snake pit, often without the support or the resources or anybody you can call and trust to have some difficult conversations. So I know I've spoken a lot about this, but I just think it's a reason why a lot of people aren't signing up to be councillors in their communities. We have got a long road to walk in terms of building trust at all levels of government with our community. I think locally it does need to be a focus for future councils, and I just feel, is it our opportunity to make the state and federal, well particularly the federal government at this conference, aware the challenges we have on the ground when they give us so few funding opportunities and so many responsibilities. I can't really think of the wording, but I feel like there needs to be some dedicated effort, a campaign or some sort of support to help local governments rebuild trust in their communities. CEO Mark, do you have any thoughts on?
Council, just dedicated support for LG, because we just TAT put the topic down, and that's I said this report will come back out of today's ideas, because the big long one will be, that would be one resolution. It'll be the council blah 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 and then dot points. Yep. So so these all take a fair bit of work. So if we so if we go Yeah,
So is there
dedicated support for local. So you're talking. It's almost like the LGAQ campaigns for our council, our community.
Yeah,
Similar?
to a degree.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it starts on the ground. We need to better equip and better prepare councillors when they first get elected, because you are diving into in an arena where there is very little support, and published research demonstrates that. Doesn't matter what level of government you're in.
If we put dedicated support for LG/councillors as the topic, and then we can go, actually, but we probably shouldn't lose one because that'll be a good one for LGAQ state conference, because that may be the only issue with the ALGA. Anyway, we'll have a play with it and see what we can do, because ALGA will look at it and each state is different.
Yes.
So they may, but whether they can run a national campaign would be a national campaign. So if we just put national campaign for dedicated support for LG councillors,
Yes.
and then we can come back with some wording.
Disappointed to see, some of the advertising around So You Want to Be a Councillor has included a lady in a swimming pool talking about her local swimming pool, and she wants to be a councillor because she likes going for a swim in our local swimming pool. Well, we all like to go for a swim in our local swimming pool, but we know we've got a 50-year-old swimming pool that's leaking at an astronomical rate. I think the
We're
way
just on
we
time,
portray-
Councillor, if you can wrap
Sorry,
up,
it's
yep.
not fair. Yes, thank you, Councillor Jones. The other one, just to build on the Red Earth Forum last year, I think we need some dedicated funding and supports to help our region establish circular economy opportunities. And I also think from a housing point of view, there should be something about supporting regions like ours to address ageing infrastructure. So they're not dissimilar to other things that we put forward before. So funding and support to establish circular economy opportunities in regional areas. And housing support to address ageing infrastructure that is stifling residential development opportunities. And that would be a separate dot point. Thank you, T. They're some of the key themes I thought of, Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Erkins?
Thank you. Just a little further on Councillor Shoemaker's comments about community lacking trust in councillors. I think it's not so much, once you get into council, I find that the support, it's pretty good, but it's more the education of people standing for council and making promises that once you're in here, you know that those, promises made with all good intent, but are absolutely impossible to be able to deliver. So therefore you have community members who vote for councillors thinking that this councillor is going to do all these things, which, they're unable to deliver. So maybe, it's more the education of councillors. So you want to be a councillor is the little course, but I just don't think that prepares people. So they go out and make promises that we all know they're just impossible to be able to fulfil them. So maybe a little better education in what is possible for a councillor to actually achieve, and bearing in mind that without a cohesive council all working to the same goals, it's impossible, just absolutely impossible. And with an area such as, for example, a place like the South Burnett, with so many different villages, towns, bigger towns, smaller towns, again, unless we're all on the same page and understanding everybody's, everyone knows I came in here and Nanango was not only the best thing, but the only thing in the South Burnett. But once you get in here, you do realise, and I think a lot of people standing don't understand that. So as I said, maybe better education for those looking to stand for council rather than, because once you get in here, we're quickly told you can't do this and you can't do that. So, maybe beforehand. Thank you.
Yeah, good comments, councillor, and you're dead right. The only way to build trust back in your community is a team that works together and be positive every time they go there. Councillor Henson, anything to, just for you?
Yeah,
to wrap
just
up?
quickly through you, Acting Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for the input to the public there. We have an 80-page document here with the national, the NGA conference that's in July, and it talks about trust, and I'll just quickly read through some of the things that we have to deal with here, how all levels of government in Australia can build trust in each other and learn greater trust from the community, practical opportunities for the Australian government to leverage the trust in the local communities, focus on practical programs that strengthen the system of local government, and the new program ideas that could help with the local government sector to deliver the Australian government objectives. So it depends who's in government as to what you get out of that document, that's for sure. And just on the final note, Acting Mayor, through you, T, on item number 7 there, I just noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, all-scale renewable projects apply to the same regulations that apply to agriculture and mining. Can you just add gas in there, Polly? Thank you.
Just on with the renewables and everything else, what everyone needs to understand is local government doesn't bring renewable energy into their region. It's up to the individual farmers that agree to the terms that are offered to them by the companies that are trying to build them. And we have to deal with it after that. So the issue is created by the landowners who currently own the land that sign up to the deals with the people that come and propose to build these things. Then the local government's role is to make sure that we get the very best we can out of those people if the people sign and it all goes through. So people at this, I've had conversations where people are blaming local government council for bringing in these renewable energy projects. It is not us. The companies come to the landowners and put propositions to the landowners and make deals with them. The landowners sign up, and that's when it becomes a local government issue that we have to deal with the roads and all the other stuff that comes with it. So please, people understand that it's not local government that bring renewables into this region. It is the landowners that sign up that create the issues for local government to deal with after that. So any other comments to make addition to the list to go to the Elga conference? All good? So we've got that, the officer's recommendation there by Councillor Duff. We've got Councillor Shoemaker's input down the bottom. Councillor Potter, did we catch yours there in that with the water? Yep, it's in there. Okay, yours, Mark's got it. Do we need to have that on the... So yeah, just down the bottom, number 11, T. Just make that 11 or whatever, yeah, okay. Oh, all good. So we go up to the top. So the officer's recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council resolves to submit the following resolutions to the National General Assembly of Local Government, and they're there as presented, a whole long list of them. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, we need a mover. Councillor Duff, do you want to move that? Yep, seconded, Councillor Henson. All right, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Good conversation. 10.2, the monthly financial information. The officer's recommendation is that the monthly financial report, including capital works and works for Queensland, as of the 31st of January 2024, be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Erkins, seconded Councillor Potter. Comments, questions, Councillor? Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. This is my, where I was, oh yeah, I was one ahead. It's, I know during our budget discussions that we were cutting down on the number of white fleet. Can you tell me whether that has occurred? But I would also like to know what impact that has had on our staff. I've had some reports back to me of staff waiting for vehicles because we've cut back. So can we just have a little information on that?
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. Who wants to take this one? Mr.
Yeah,
CEO?
I can. Actually, it's been, only talking about it at ELT, so we started all getting the budget documents ready for when the new council comes in, and I have gone to the fleet. So in 2020, when we started the term, we had 126 white fleet. Councillors may remember that number coming up through the various workshops and committee meetings. As of basically this last week, we have 106 white fleet. So we've brought it back to 20 white fleet that I think, and I haven't gone back and double checked my notes, but I think that was what we were asked to at the time, around that 20 number impacts. I have asked finance, and they are now tracking it with each payroll, how many claims for mileage that we have. So we're starting to get the data together. So there is, I would think anecdotally, without having comparison data over the years, but there is an increase in people using their personal vehicles because council fleet isn't available. And also there is, again, anecdotally, and it'll be a topic for conversation, with all these, there's a balance in the system between how many that you have and how many that you don't have. But we need to watch that we don't lose productivity because people are waiting for a vehicle and can't get from one side to another. So that's basically where it's at the minute.
So that's probably, you know, one of the things that I'd like. It's a little bit like when we said about taking the, putting more weight on operators when we're looking at choosing vehicles or machinery. In this, you know, I'd like to know from the guys who are actually, that vehicles have been cut down on, you know, how much time we are actually, they're sitting waiting to be picked up, whether that has an impact on our bottom line. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good, good comment, Councillor Erkins. Any other comments around the financial? Councillor Schumacher?
Just a couple of things, just with the rates and arrears. Just wanted to note, when we first came into council, I'm pretty sure they were tracking somewhere around 12%. And I know there's been a real dedicated effort to try to, it was quite a large amount of rates and arrears when you think about it, 12%. Just wanted an update. I know there's been the recent sale as well for rates arrears properties, and I just wondered how things were tracking in the department, how you were expecting to end the term.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor. I actually read that report as well, and I was a bit excited when the council set a benchmark of 7% for overdue rates. That was a tolerance level to try to minimise the impact on ratepayers within the region who did pay their rates. So at the start of the term, we amended our debt collection policy to reflect this, and this council here gave us the permission to openly pursue any outstanding debt. So my team in finance have been looking at any debts as far as rates in arrears or debtors accounts and that. So we have been actively pursuing them, and I really have to compliment the staff. They've put in a lot of time and a lot of energy. And as at when you first started the term, the rates were tracking, overdue rates were tracking at 12.81%, so nearly 13%. There, January, we did the analysis there, and we're now tracking at 6.25%. But that is not including the recent sale of rates and arrears, so that will even reduce more. So, you know, full, you know, credit to my finance team and for the support the council has given us in pursuing this. And again, it does minimise the impact on our general ratepayers within the South Burnett there, that we don't have to be retrieving all these overdue debt that's gaining interest along the way and making it just about unbearable or difficult for people to actually pay their way out of debt.
Yeah, heartfelt thank you to the team. I know that's been a very difficult project, and it's really impressive to see that we've been able to chip away at it. I just also had a question for General Manager Mann. Sorry, your second last meeting, I can't help it. Just in relation to, I did read in the report your expenditure for water and wastewater is actually tracking high. I just wondered if you may be able to give an update. I know there are a number of issues over the Christmas break, and I just wondered if you may be able to give an update, make sure we still have money in the bank to cover your immediate needs, which I know there were a number of, the holes in the cheese really did line up.
Yep, we'll get Adam over to this, I would imagine. He's the expert. So over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam, because I think you were almost camping out at the facilities over your Christmas break, and we really do appreciate the work you put in. Amazing. Yeah, you're right.
We're just covering on water.
Councillor, if we could we just maintain this one to water? There are like with
Sure.
yeah.
No
Would you
worries. I
mind?
just wanted to, so probably
yeah.
a finance question then,
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
reframe it.
Yep.
The finance question is there, how is your budget tracking? Do you have enough funding in your current finances to cover the costs, or are you still working this out?
Well, if I go first, and then you guys can do so. So we have had some well documented technical problems. There will be increased costs across both water and wastewater, but predominantly we're still looking at some of the programs going forward. I suspect that we'll need to have a conversation in the new in the financial year coming with the new council as far as capital programs and the priority of capital programs in this space. Certainly, if we could keep to the water infrastructure. There was significant Sunwater, and again, we had the opportunity on Friday.
Yes.
Sunwater did a terrific job with the Bunduma line in January, and our heartfelt thanks for those. But Gordon Brook took a lightning strike, so there was operational, and I don't know that there was any capital cost, I suppose, replacing the telemetry or fixing that, but I'll yield to these guys about that. But yeah, there is, you're on the money as far as looking at that trend. There will be increased costs, and whether it needs a budget review or not is, in my mind, yet to be determined, but there will be, if not this financial year, it will flow into next financial year.
So through the acting chair, to answer your question in short, if we do track over, we'll have a reduced surplus that goes to restricted cash.
Yes.
In some years, we might have, an underspend where it'll increase. We have a wastewater issue, which the CEO has touched on before, which unfortunately we can't speak to that in open council. And happy to bring that up with council later on. With water, we're tracking okay, but in general, if we were to overspend due to we've had an increase in maintenance costs due to something, then we would take a reduced surplus in for that financial year.
Yes, I guess this is my concern, is when we started this term of council, we talked about water and wastewater cross-subsidising each other, and we're really focused on we've made the very difficult decision to do $65 million worth of capital works, noting that we would have to do 115, we should do 115 over the next 10 years. I'm just mindful that we were banking cash to try to help build the reserve, because we have this giant $20 million question mark with the Gordon Brook Dam spillway, which we'll have to borrow for. So I'm really concerned about water and wastewater's finances, and I would probably appreciate a briefing or some more information about that, because I know what we were banking when we did that modelling will make an enormous difference in 10 years' time if we don't have the cash in the bank to deliver on that capital program. And particularly noting we were expecting some state government funding, building our regions, we were expecting a $5 million grant to build an upstream storage, and that didn't come through. And the Mount Warulin Reservoir project, which I advocated hard for Works for Queensland funding, which, we chipped away after some significant debate down to, I think, $1.5 million, and we've had to tip cash in to meet that $2 million need for the reservoir, but those costs are still increasing. So it's a headache, I guess, and I'm just really worried about your finances, because we spent some really dedicated time working on water and wastewater's long-term vision and strategy, and I would appreciate an update on that.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, through you, Acting Mayor. On the rates, that's a great achievement, and I know the number of people that I've spoken to that have been having issues, and they've contacted your team. You really looked after them well. I just want to really reiterate that those people that are having trouble with their rates to please contact. I think I've said this before, when people get behind, I know we put it out in the notices, people sometimes get overwhelmed with, debt, and they don't even open their rates notice because it's something that they try and, forget about. But, just want to, as I said, reiterate that if you are having issue with rate payments, you know, please contact council, because council are able to come to work out some terms. Your interest payments stop once you go onto a payment plan, and I don't think a lot of people realise that, you know, if their rates are outstanding, their interest is adding to that bill, and if they just contact council, and the staff in the rate section are very, very good. So, you know, congratulations on getting that bill down. On the water costs, I know that there's been so much, and everyone knows I'm a social media tart, that there has been so much discussion on water, and it's something that I sometimes take very personal, the complaints about water, especially in Nanango, because I know that the water the quality of the water in Nanango is so much improved now that we are from the bores to what it was when we're in the Weir. But a lot of new people move to this area and don't understand that the locals in the South Burnett have always relied on tanks for drinking water. You know, I think someone was telling me at one stage when they talked about putting fluoride in the water in this region, there was really not much benefit, because most people don't drink the town water anyway. And that's not because it's not potable, but it's because it's not, it doesn't taste that nice. But if I go to Brisbane, I don't drink the water in Brisbane either, because I don't like the taste of it. So just it's sometimes of concern to me when everyone talks about water and the water's terrible, that if the community just realised, I believe I was talking to you, Mr. CEO, when we talked about the cost, the approximate cost of putting in a treatment plant to take the colour out of the water in Kingaroy, that really only occurs at different temperatures and with weather conditions. It causes that rust colour in the water, and I think we're looking at $23 million approximately to put in a treatment plant, but millions and millions of dollars. And I just wish that when community are complaining about water, that they do understand that to fix it is going to cost. The water is potable and you can drink it. Maybe it doesn't taste the best, but you know, when we look at even 6.25% of our ratepayers are having difficulties paying their rates. You know, if we put added costs with putting in different treatment plants everywhere to make, you know, to address some of these issues that are only intermittent issues, you know, our community have got to pay for it. So just sort of bearing that in mind. Thank you.
Councillor Erkins, that was one of your best speeches in the chamber. Well done. You've come a long way in 20 months. Congratulations. Councillor Potter, did you have your light on?
Yes, I did, but Councillor Erkin stole the limelight, so it's all good.
You two are spending too much time together. You know what's going on. Okay, that's good work. Okay, so we've got the monthly financial information there, moved by Councillor Erkin, second by Councillor Potter, that the monthly financial report, including capital works and works for Queensland, as at the 31st of January 2024, be received and noted. Go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll break there now. If anyone wants to go over and watch the ballot draw, you're quite welcome to. We'll have morning tea and we'll come back when everyone comes back from the ballot draw. So see how everyone goes. I moved that we go into morning tea, seconded by Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. I'd just like to move that we come back into the general, seconded by Councillor Hanshin. Go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 11, the portfolio for infrastructure planning, works, construction and maintenance, water, wastewater and plant and fleet. We have nothing. 12, portfolio for community development, arts, heritage, library services. Nothing. And we move on to 13, the portfolio for natural resource management, rural services, agriculture, innovation, compliance and environmental health. And we go to the systematic inspection program. And the officer's recommendation at 13.1 is that the council approve a systematic inspection program for properties within the South Burnett Regional Council's jurisdiction in accordance with section 113 of the Animal Management Cats and Dogs Act 2008 to monitor compliance with the requirements of the Animal Management Cats and Dogs Act 2008, more specifically the requirement to register dogs. The properties to be included in the systematic inspection program are potentially all properties within the South Burnett area. The systematic inspection program will be conducted between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, commencing on Monday the 4th of March 2024 and concluding on Friday the 31st of May 2024. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hanshin, second by Councillor Potter. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you. Look, probably just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the acting GM for communities. So, with regards to the dogs and dangerous dogs, look, I've actually fielded quite a few phone calls, and I personally feel that dangerous and menacing dogs are a priority and needs to be resourced appropriately. So, my question to you, GM, is: does council have the appropriate resources in place to deal with dangerous and menacing dogs? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Council does have compliance officers. We have a number of officers throughout the region. Unfortunately, it is difficult at the moment to continue to recruit officers into these positions. So for the past 6 months, we have had a vacancy in the compliance team, but we have a new officer that just has started on Monday. So there's a large amount of work that compliance staff have to do. It's not just in the animal control. I would say, yes, at times they are very thin on the ground and they find it difficult to get across to all the customer requests. Just in the last 6 months, we've had over 600 customer requests in that compliance section. So there's a large number of requests that they have to investigate. And I'm not saying that's not just dogs, that's a number of other matters as well. So yeah, at times it is very difficult, but we do have resources in the field to help assist, and certainly dangerous dog and menacing dogs are a priority for the team.
Councillor Hanshin.
Thank you, through you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, look, a great initiative in my opinion, fully supportive of this. We know we sat in this chamber some weeks or months ago. This dog issue's been on for a long time, but I know the constituents I talk to applaud this system to try and make the dog owners more responsible. We know what the fee was in relation to unpaid registrations there. It was brought to us a month or so ago. So I think a great initiative, and can fully understand the staffing issues around that. But I'm sure, and I know it notes there that the time frame from March through to May is a period of time, and I do believe that there will be a public notice on that. Yes, thank you, Manager Leanne. So there's no reason the general public won't have any idea that this is going to be performed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. If there's no other comments, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I just had a question just in relation to the inspection program, what it actually entailed. Like, do we go door to door, property to property, and if we find somebody has not actually registered their dog, are they given a warning, or is there a fine straight away? I guess I was just trying to understand what the process was.
Yep. Thank you, through you, Chair. Certainly, what happens is that the systematic inspectors go out and they will be targeting those areas where we haven't received a registration payment for dogs registered at that address. So what happens is the officer will go to that property. They will make some inquiries, because it could be that the actual family that's in that house now is not the original family that had the dog registered. So it's about checking addresses, who's at that property, and then is there dogs at that location? Are they registered or not registered? And explaining the process to that person at that residence. Then if we find out that it is the owner of the dog and the dog still exists there and it's not registered, then it's explaining the process to them and giving them a warning. Well, they'll have so many days to make payment. If they don't make payment, then it will be a fine.
Yeah, thank you for confirming the process. Fully supportive of the motion.
Wrap up, Councillor Ancient.
Yeah, I'm not going to wrap up. Oh, just, it's more just a notice so the public and the councillors can know this morning, and a good news story. And we don't get too many of these. I was travelling in this morning past the Kingaroy Golf Club, and there was two lovely ladies in front of me from the Bunya Mountains, and a koala bear ran across the road. Only a half-grown koala bear, and actually ran under the car at that stage along that stretch of highway. Everyone's doing 100 kilometres an hour. They managed to pull up and just give this little bear a little bit of a tap, and I was behind the vehicle and saw it all. He was not hurt at all. They were seriously distressed, these ladies, and of course we made a little bit of the scene and the chaos on the highway. The little bear ran across the road and got up in the tree, and he's perfectly all right. So that's a great news story in the animal section anyway, outside of the dog section, but just wanted to bring it to the chambers and the public, and it was lovely to see in that section. And I know the golf club has a lot down on the Burrendown Road, but he was on the highway right near where the woodman is there. So that was a good story this morning, and the ladies were calm to know that he was okay. That's just part of what happens in my travels around Division 6 and in the South Burnett region, and a wonderful end to that story.
No, I can't reply to that. That's warm and fuzzy, Councillor Henson. That's great. Great result. Okay, so we have the systematic inspection program. The motion moved by Councillor Henson, seconded by Councillor Potter. I'll present it as read there, read as presented. We go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 14, portfolio, disaster management, waste and recycling management. We have nothing. Portfolio at 15 is a rural resilience, disaster recovery, parks, gardens, property, facility management. First Nations affair, nothing. Portfolio for tourism, visitor information centres, sport, recreation, commercial enterprises, nothing. 17, portfolio regional development, development services, community and social housing, nothing. Questions on notice in infrastructure at page 208 is, as I will read, that the Infrastructure Department has received the below question on notice, and the question is, 1, have the dirty water requests from the Christmas period been completed? And 2, are road requests closed off because the works have been completed, or have they just been scheduled for future works? So, GM Meehan, I think you are the GM for both these. I'll hand over to you, and we'll start with the water. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, through the acting mayor. So I note that the water was getting a bit of a discussion earlier today. So I'll just get Adam just to talk to the dirty water. I know it's an ongoing issue that seems to be coming up more and more. So I thought Adam would just give just a brief overview of that, of how that occurs, and some of the things we do there, and encourage people to contact us if they do have dirty water that we can come and flush.
Yeah, so firstly, when I answered the question fairly directly, Councillor, which was just during that period of the Christmas shutdown. We only had a couple of calls come through from customers during that Christmas shutdown period. So there may have been an issue with the way that the calls were coming through to council at that time. But once we returned back to the normal working weeks, we started to receive a larger amount of emails and calls come through then. So we just encourage the customers, if they have an issue with dirty waters, to contact us straight away so we can address that issue straight away. I I guess in terms of the reason it happens is we have a lot of iron and manganese in the water at times, and climatic conditions can change the way that precipitates out of the water. So basically we add chlorine to disinfect the water, but the adverse effect of that is we have basically like a rust or a discoloration of the water supply at times. So I'm really hoping that is a very basic level of what causes it. So I'm just hoping that addresses the question.
I would just say too, this issue is not isolated to South Burnett Regional Council. It happens in every water network across the state, and there's notices sent out in other areas. So I would encourage people that if they are experiencing discoloration of their water, to get in contact with us as soon as they can. If they call the after hours number, we will come and flush the mains at those locations. So yeah, that's the response to that, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully that helps the council.
Councillor Duff, it's your question. I'll over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the response, but like I spoke to CEO Mark because we were getting belted on Facebook and I was tagged into one of the posts, and so then CEO Mark suggested I find out which streets. So then I told him I was going to put a post up, and I did, and I've got the streets, and I sent them in an email to I sent to CEO Mark, I copied the infrastructure team in, and then I sent it as a separate one, the same streets as a customer request on that same day, which was the 29th of December. And in that report, then when I've asked that question, you've said I know that you've said you're being very specific, but that was over that Christmas period. That was the 29th of December, where people still had to ring the after hours number. And there were complaints on that, and I've raised this with CEO Mark, that when you ring the after hours number, it can take up to 3/4 of an hour, and I sat there, and I did that over that period with a different complaint with a dead kangaroo in Apex Park. Sat there for, it would have been more than half an hour till Peak Services got back to me. So when then I also sent one through at the same time, a separate customer request over that Christmas shutdown period for the RSL on behalf of Rowena Donetius. So I'm just a bit disappointed that it's just like looking like there was only 2 requests. At the time when CEO Mark questioned it, there had been 2, but then after that, straight after that, there would have been 30 different streets and people upset. So why is that not regarded as a customer request? Like, does it have to be like I suggested to CEO Mark about maybe do I need to put one each individual one? So then I put a post up on Facebook for people to send them straight through to the email address, because if they tried to ring the after hours, they couldn't get through, and they were complaining about that. So there's definitely a real issue with our customer request after hours stuff over those breakdown, when we had the Christmas breaks. But also now going forward, there's more and more people complaining about the Kingaroy water again. It's like it's still chocolate coloured. So, and they're copying me into it, and I know they're copying, tagging Acting Mayor Jones. They're really, really upset just right now about the Kingaroy water. And I didn't know that it was, like now they're all saying, oh, it's been like this for 18 years. Has it been like this for 18 years, or is it just, why is it brown again now? Like they're all saying, and there's a bloke who rang me this morning, he said he's got his daughter's had a baby and they're having to drive to Memorandie to bath their child because they can't use, he's got tank water, they haven't got tank water in town and they can't use the water. It's just really, really bad. So just like to have a bit more clarification as to, it's not this, like, and the suggestion that it was a one-off because of some breakage. It's not, to me, it's not a one-off because all those breakages have been sorted and now they're still complaining about the Kingaroy water. So just like to have a bit more clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. So probably first up, we understand it's more than just the two issue. That's probably why I got Adam to come along today and give council an explanation for why that occurs. So Adam might just talk to why we do see it on the ongoing at the moment as well. But fully acknowledge the issue. That's more than 2 complaints. That's why we brought Adam in today to give that explanation for you. And just to assist councillors why it does occur.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, through the chair. Sorry, when I responded to that, it was during that Christmas period. Certainly not trying to pull the wool over your eyes and say that we didn't receive a numerous number of complaints once the emails came through. It's just that the emails are unattended during that period of shutdown. So I guess that's why we try to encourage that after hours contact so that the request can be lodged in real time. Iron and manganese is a historical issue it's basically due to the geological weathering of the rock that we have in the area. So we love that red volcanic soils, but the adverse effect for that is it leaches out into our waterways, so it gets into our groundwater and also our surface water. And when we treat that, the chlorine oxidises it and give it that rusty colour. A number of effects can take place to make that kick on, if you like. So it can be temperature related. So you may recall it was quite cool. We had a bit of rain up to Christmas, and then at the Christmas period we had those really hot days. And what can happen then is that the iron and the manganese can precipitate out of the water in the actual networks, so out in the fields, and then we send our guys out to try and flush that through. And it's kind of like a cloud, if you like. So there'll be a cloud in this area. Our guys will flush that area and move it on. But sometimes when you flush, you can actually stir the mains up and you'll get dirty water from the flushing as well. So it has been an issue for a long period of time. You may recall Mergen last year at Christmas time. It had increased iron and manganese, and we had dirty water complaints over the Christmas period in Mergen. And this year we're finding it in Kingaroy.
So thank you. So going forward, is there anything that we can do infrastructure-wise to try and sort it?
Good question through Chair. Yes, there is. We've been doing benchtop testings, trials to use different oxidising agents prior to the treatment plant. Those benchtop trials are fairly successful and they're looking very promising, but we will need to put infrastructure upgrades in place or build new bits of kit so that we can run those different chemicals through the treatment plant.
Yeah. Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yeah. So happy to move forward with that, but certainly, and I noticed that you did put that the recommendation from these will be CapEx projects into the future. So yeah. So I definitely think that there needs to be some CapEx projects into the future to fix it. But do we need more of an investigation, or are you right across what is actually the problem?
Through the chair, so similar to what we were talking about before, if the new council wants to look at improving its water quality, there's probably a range of things we need to look at, and it still comes back to everything. It's the quality of the raw water that comes through, and like we were saying there before, you're getting sediments and stuff like that in the water mains. You're still going to have some of those issues. Some of the things that Adam and his team are looking at is how can we minimise that in a cost-effective way, as opposed to building a new $50 million treatment plant in locations which may be required. To mitigate some of those issues, particularly if it's high in chlorides and those sorts of things. So it's something that we're happy to work with the new council on some options to do that. What Adam's looking to do is, what are some local solutions that we can do and, adjust to new bits that get onto existing infrastructure if possible.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So now will we move on to the roads one, or we just...
No, not yet. There's other people. I was just listening. Have you got any opinion on how to fix it? Because people are telling me that you had solutions of moving forward. So is there any recommendations that you'd like to put up?
Actually, what we're just talking about, investigate it and try and get some CapEx projects forward to fix it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I'm pretty concerned about the water. I'm pretty concerned that it's being used really as a bit of a political football. For when they were putting up the water in Kingaroy, being a dirty colour, so people in Nanango jumped onto the thing. onto the boat. I've only been in council 20 months, but I am well aware of the issues of water in the area. As I said earlier, when I addressed it earlier, in Nanango, our water used to go brown like that because of different weather conditions and with the iron and the manganese in the water. As councillors, you know, all councillors should be aware. People have lived here for that long. It's not an issue that's just come. It's always been there, exactly as you said, Councillor Duck. So as a councillor, you know, I would think that instead of stirring up that issue, that we should be just explaining to people that's a fact of life for the water that we have. I mean, I often joke and say that my community would be happy if we brought in spring water from the Swiss Alps. But, you know, I mean, but it is a fact. We have water, and there are a lot of places that have got a lot worse water than us, and without millions and millions of dollars. And when you talk about fixing it in Kingaroy and putting in a treatment plant to take it off on the occasions that it does get dirty, you know who'll be paying for that? Ratepayers who live in Nanango who don't even have a treatment plant, ratepayers who live in Wandai and Mergen who also have issues with their water. You know, if we're talking capex and putting it in Kingaroy, you know, you won't have anything left if you put treatment plants in every place. It's not, correct me if I'm wrong, that water is still potable, still safe to drink, even though it's discoloured?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is. So it does at times exceed the aesthetic guidelines in the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines, but that it still does meet the health-based guidelines.
So it's
in
still
the Australian
safe to drink?
It is.
So if it's safe to drink, I'm pretty sure it would be safe to wash your baby in. You know, I just... Why? Well, I'm not a chemist, but I mean, people have been living here and working on that water for, well, Nanango, it's 175 years old. So, I mean, we've been dealing with the water there. And I do see it as an issue, and I do see it as something that we need to work towards improving our water, sure. But I get a little upset when I see people using it as a political leverage and saying, you know, I'm going to do this to improve the water, when it's not something that's an easy fix. And I don't believe as councillors, that we should be explaining what the issue is with the water and not just saying, you know, I'm going to fix it, which, you know, I've got answers, because the answers are not easy. And, you know, that's just my concerns.
Yeah, just picking you up there, Councillor Herkins, I'm sure you didn't mean anything bad towards anybody as with your comment around bathing a baby off. You were just wound up in the situation, and I'm sure I'm sure you understand that people do.
I understand that, but for somebody saying that because of our water, they've had to go somewhere else to be able to bath their baby. I mean, that was the thing. If it's safe, I'm sure that we do not, you know, I mean, taking on board what you said, are you telling me that it's not safe? I mean, the water we put out must be safe.
It's not that. It's just the fact that people, young mothers and all that sort of stuff, appreciate the fact that they want to have clean water.
I do understand
that's right.
that.
So
yeah.
that's what I was trying to get to. So you didn't mean anything bad, and you weren't sinister with your comments. I'm actually supporting you in what you're trying to say and make it clear to the public what you were trying to say. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, and thank you for the update. I really do appreciate there's quite a lot of science behind that. I just wanted to check, so it was my understanding that the Bundoomba pipeline was down over the Christmas break, and that when we blend the water, when we blend Gordon Brook water with Bundoomba Dam pipeline water, that the water quality is better.
Through you, Chair. It is correct, yeah. So generally the water that's in the Bundoomba Dam is of better water qualities. It contains less inorganic material than Gordon Brook. Gordon Brook does have its challenges with inorganic material, and I just wanted to point out to Council that iron and manganese is two parts to it. We also have elevated bromide and chlorides that's in Gordon Brook, which you're probably familiar with. the bromides have adverse effect as well downstream. So, but yes.
Yes, and just want to confirm that we have a good working relationship and we'll be working with Sunwater if they have to take that Mboomba pipeline offline again.
Absolutely. Through your chair, we have a very good working relationship with the Sunwater ops teams, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I do think, I really do appreciate the update. I really do appreciate that you did spend most of your Christmas break dealing with this issue. It is an issue that has been a long-standing issue for our region. Kingaroy does have a 1 in 13-year water failure rate, and that's been well documented. And we have briefed all levels of government about this issue. We have tried very hard. We submitted an excellent application for building our region's funding to build an off-stream storage, which would have actually allowed us to have the capacity to store the Mboomba Dam water for the instances where the pipeline has gone offline, because that is a likely occurrence now and into the future, and any one day we can't rely on that pipeline always being available. It's a long-standing issue, it's a very costly issue, and certainly I appreciate we've all been working very hard to try to address this issue. It's very difficult when we also know that Nanango has water challenges, and I understand that in the initial investigations where we investigated connecting Nanango to Kingaroy's town water, that the actual risk failure went up to 1 in 3, which really is unacceptable for a community that is home to the largest pork processing facility in the Southern Hemisphere and a growing population. So I really do appreciate the update, and I do think this is an issue that we just have to continue chipping away at, and I really do hope that government may actually, instead of giving us more blood money for more reports, actually help us build some infrastructure to address the challenges. Thank you for the update, and thank you for the work that you do. Really is appreciated.
Councillor Ancient.
Thank you. Through you, probably a question and 2 comments. The comments are, in relation to Mboomba Dam, as much as it's a magnificent water storage facility out there, the rural people in that area, I can tell you now that in the event of flood crossings that they put up out there, they last a matter of months, and that wire is, steel pickets are completely gone. They're eroded away. So the water quality out there now sitting at 85.59%, as much as there's been a wonderful fresh in there, and at some stage, and whether I'm happy to take a question or notice, but the water quality of that Mboomba Dam, it'd be interesting to see, and then to see what you guys do with it, because it's a credit to you to get it back to a potable state by the time it gets here. The question I have is, and we get smashed, as Councillor Duff has said, about the quality of the water. There's a regulatory standard around that water. How often is that tested?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's a whole range of testing that we do in terms of our drinking water supply. Microbial is probably the most important that we address, and we do anything up to 75 microbial tests across the region each week. Plus we do standard water analysis, heavy metals, pesticides. The frequency vary, but no more than monthly for most of all other. So it's heavy metals, pesticides, chemical water analysis.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure the vast majority of people outside of residential areas would be pretty glad to pay their $700 to turn a tap on and get water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That being said, Mr CEO, I think the public needs to be advised that perhaps the testing standards on this water across the region are just that, a regulatory standard that it's safe for human use and consumption. So perhaps a media release around that would certainly be beneficial to our water guys and the entire population in the region. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm one of these people that have been living with this water most of my life. I was brought up on Gordon Brook Dam water, and so frankly I think the water we've got now is brilliant. But look, I still get the dirty water through my house, and honestly by the time I've had my shower and other people have it, it actually goes clean again. So it's just one of those things, like after a couple of hours it's at my place I know that the water goes clear a small while later. So, but every time it does, and people call me up and I tell them to ring council. One recently where, thank you very much, it was brought to my attention that you'd gone up, you flushed the pipes, and they thank you very much for that. It's really appreciated because she has a small child in the house. But I'm just wondering, and this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to take this to ALGA, and I think maybe we need to take this to even LGAQ as well, so it should be probably put on the LGAQ conference towards the end of the year as well, one of the issues. But do we have anything with planning where when people build a house in town, they have to put a tank on it or anything like that? So, because I think these are the other things we need to look at, whether we have tanks and filters and with it, because I know in other areas that when they build a house, they have to put a tank with that. So I suppose that's my question, probably another one on notice, but yeah, moving forward, is that something we can work as a council with?
Acting GM Leanne, have you got anything around that? Probably that is a question on notice. You've only just stepped up, Mark. I don't, yeah, no requirement, yeah. So there's no requirement to put a tank on your house when you build, so. Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, no, tanks are interesting because they cycle. There's regulations that have them put on. Then there was regulations with mosquitoes to have them pulled off, and so you weren't allowed to have tanks. Then they lifted that. So at the moment, to answer your question short, no, there's no legal requirement in a building or planning process. Just, if I may, just on a couple of points, and it's just to share factual information. Certainly the after-hour call has had its challenges over a period of time. That contract has now run its day, so it's about to run out. We actually, I don't think it's closed yet, but it wouldn't be too far away. That's gone out to tender. So the current provider has been informed in writing that, it was in writing. But anyway, they've been informed that their contract won't be automatically renewed, and yeah, it would be improper to have a outcome before the end of the process, but certainly we'd be hopeful that we'll get a range of service providers. The other one with that, it was just such an erratic service. Councillor Erkins rang me on one of my regular Sunday calls about Ringsfield and different ones. It went through in an instant. Other ones, and Councillor Duff, I've been half hour, 40 minutes or 15 minutes on call. So anyway, so we're quite, with the assessment of the new after-hours service, the lone worker, but also that timeliness in response will be certainly a consideration, and who gets the gig. The switching over, so the water quality Blackbutt has not got a Guernsey. For those who recall, we had to air scour the lines in Blackbutt, so not just flush, but that was Blackbutt. We have similar issues, and certainly when we cross across to 100% Gordon Brook water, the Gordon Brook water is so hard to treat, and that's why it's the 50% mark. It becomes almost untreatable, depending on how much money you want to throw at it. The Gordon Brook plant, as it was built in about whenever it was in 2016, doesn't do amenity of water. It treats the water, so there would be that would be the capital program, whether you could, and most likely I believe you can patch something onto the Gordon Brook plant. And so, yeah, so thanks, Acting Mayor. It's just to pick up those couple of points.
No, very good. And on Councillor Erkins, just a quick second opinion.
Yep. On the tanks, Mr. CEO, I can remember going to a Meet the Councillors meeting at one stage when water was very much at the forefront of my mind. And at that stage, tanks, you weren't allowed to actually put the tank through to any potable water, because realistically, if you check tank water, you'd probably find, unless you're using a filter, you've got more chance of being sick from tank water than you have of being from the town water. But probably one of the reasons also that I do get pretty upset about the water discussions is because Nanango's water is very harsh water. It's very hard. You look at your pipes, and people are always complaining to me about their water, but again, it comes back to it is water. It's a fact of life living in that area. But I do get a little upset then when they talk about treatment plants and what they're going to do to improve the water in Kingaroy, when all across the region there are issues with our water.
Councillor Duff.
Just to wrap up. Yeah, yeah, so I just wanted to say, it's really great that we're going to look at other options apart from peak services when we go to tender for the after hours. And just wanted to say, that 100% support what Councillor Schumacher's saying about the failure rates and stuff, but this was more about the quality of the water rather than the quantity of the water, that where I was raising about the, and what Councillor Erkin said, you know, like spending too much money. But this, even now with what we've discussed, is going to likely lead to some capital proposals. So we need to look at that, because if there's things we can do to try and improve the quality of the water as well as the quantity, I think that we really need to investigate that, because, I mean, I know when we did the fluoride test, 3/4 of the people in Kingaroy were not drinking the water, they were just putting it on their garden. So we couldn't see the benefit of putting fluoride through when they were just watering their gardens with it. So the Kingaroy water is obviously, and Anengo water have got quality issues aside from quantity issues. So I just wanted to put that out there. But also, did you want me to finalise off on the roads one too, just because it was one and the same? Water? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So just, Councillor Schumacher, you're on the water?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to confirm, it is my understanding it is both quality and quantity that is the issue, and that this is a long-standing issue. And we have had long, heated debates in this chamber about allocating funding and resourcing to this issue. This is not new. This has been something that, as Councillor Potter has said, the Kingaroy community has had to live with for forever. It's also something that Councillor Erkins has said the Nanango community has struggled with forever. This is not a new issue. The reality is it is both water quality, yes, water quantity, yes. And I do believe, you know, this council has been working very hard in the background, trying to advocate on these matters for some time. It's not a new issue. The reality is it needs to continue to be front of focus, yes, but I disagree. It is both quality and quantity, and it is unacceptable that a regional community should have to accept that this is okay, that something does need to be done. Both state and federal government are very aware of this issue. We need them to step up and help us fix this issue. The reality is we have got ageing infrastructure, and the water, we need water allocation, more water allocation from Bundoonga Dam, and we need that off-stream storage to fix this problem for good, and we need to investigate options to re-kit the water treatment facility at Gordonbrook to manage with the quality. So thank you for the conversation and the opportunity for the briefing. I really do appreciate that, because it was over the Christmas break, but there is certainly a lot more work to be done in this area. And I think every person in this room knows how important this matter is, and we have all actively been trying to work on it, certainly in my 4 years here at council.
Absolutely, councillor. The Rurulan Reservoir, I would have liked to think that it's been mentioned, we had heated discussion about funding and all that and allocation of Works for Queensland money. We're still waiting for that to get under construction, I believe. I would have liked to have thought that would have been completed. It should have been completed, and it would have went a long way. People in the Kingaroy region and the South Burnett region don't just know how close we were to running out of Bundoonga water through that Christmas period, and they would have had all Gordon Brook water coming in, and they would have had a real issue then. And the off-site storage at Gordon Brook is essential to me. I think it's the number one priority in any ref funding, anything like that. It's got to, so it's the security of the regional water or residential water in Kingaroy, but it's right across the region, as Councillor Erkins has said. And the other thing that we haven't touched on in this, and it may have been mentioned, the government's forcing a $20 million spend on this government or this council to go and build a spillway at Gordon Brook Dam for absolutely no benefit whatsoever, not one drop of water. So you take that issue out of the pie and let that $20 million we're going to have to borrow for that and put it into the fixing of the water quality and the amount that we have, it's a hell of a difference. So the state government the people out in the community need to know that they're forcing it on this council to borrow $20 million and the ratepayer has to pay it back for no benefit whatsoever, not one drop of water, and it's not going to fix anything. We could do so much for the region with $20 million spend on all the other. Adam, if I gave you $20 million, you'd go a long way to fixing all the issues. And that's a fair comment? Absolutely.
Shovel ready, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, that's right. So, again, backing up what the comments around here, mate, to you personally, I know how much time you spent out there over Christmas. You were there nearly 24 hours a day, working that whole system out there manually. So to you, congratulations. Thank you very much on behalf of all the residents, and to all your people that work in that water section. Well done, good job, and keep it up. Thank you. Okay, so that brings to a close that one. We'll now hand over to another just as controversial, Mr. Meehan. So you can take this one away.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So another question I got from Councillor Duff in relation to that, and I know it's one we've been probably discussing for a long period of time. So I just put some numbers there, and this is for council. We have made some improvements in how we track our numbers, and it's a work in progress. And like everything we do in the infrastructure space, we are trying to be more customer service focused and also in understanding our business. And just a comparison there, so it just shows the total number of complaints that we've had just between two different financial years, just over that period of time. So, and to answer the councillor's question is what happens to a complaint when it comes through. Just down there on page 211, I've just given a diagram there which shows council what generally will happen to that. There might be the odd exception to that, but in general terms, what we would see is your customer request would come in. It would be logged for an inspection if it's required for an inspection. If it was no further action, we would advise the customer of that. There might be a civil matter, or throw it through to TMR or police or something along those lines. Some jobs are listed for future capital works, so some people might complain about a road and it might actually need a resheet, or it might need to be reconstructed and added to those future programs there. Generally what happens is if it's a really high priority defect and it's going into a maintenance zone that we're working in, it will go into our quarterly program. So there's always that common thing, it takes 12 weeks to fix a pothole. That's actually not quite right. The guys actually work to a quarterly program and they will shuffle priorities inside that based on their whereabouts and also the optimisation of their program. So they might actually fix the pothole next week, but they will run a proactive program as opposed to a reactive one. So that's why we bring them into those things. One of the key things that we were doing poorly, especially when I arrived, was we were using a reactive program, and that was one of the key recommendations that we moved to a program basis. That doesn't mean that we don't react to items that occur on the network, but generally we'll try to run a proactive program so we can plan the resources and allocate there. The other thing that might happen is it might go to a forward works program, and by that it might be in the second quarterly program, or it might be added to the line marking program for later that year or along those lines. And the other thing that happens is it will go to a defect backlog. So we have run a maintenance management system, which council is aware of, which is the reflex system. All the defects are added into there so that people in the works team can go through and keep a metric on where the defects are on the network through that space. The key question is, why do we close the customer requests? If we didn't have a maintenance management system specifically used for defects, we would have 8,000 customer requests open, which means we would lose total control of our system. And that's not what it's intended to do. It's intended to go through and get it into the right program and into a right backlog, which is managed into the future. And that's not to say that we can't do customer service better, and there are some improvements that we need to make in that space. And that's something that we've been proactively working on with the team to try and improve our responses in that there. Just one of the things we did dig out the other day, and we just updated, we actually had an existing road maintenance fact sheet. And we've actually just updated that. We put some of the metrics on there from the budget stuff that we've done this year. So just for council, and we will release that through the media team, Mr. CEO, I think is our intent to put that out there. And there's an updated fact sheet there on page 212 and 213, which may assist council and also the community on how road maintenance works as well. So that's my first round for you, councillor. If happy to.
Councillor Duff.
So the question was, are road requests closed off because the works have been completed, or have they just been scheduled for future works? So what you're saying is that they are closed off because they're scheduled for future works. So they could be a defect recorded for forward programming in line with priority across the region. So they could be, so if someone puts in a complaint about a pothole and then we say it's been closed off, the pothole can still be there, but you're saying it's been scheduled for future works. So that's like, it hasn't actually been done. So that's where the issue, in my opinion, lies, because there's some requests, I had a look back where I put a request in for potholes in August and they're still there. So whether that's gone into defect for future works, how do the customers or myself or anyone keep track of what's regarded as okay into future works? Like that request for Silverleaf Road, for example, is closed off, but it's still not attended to. So where's the next step? Do you just keep putting requests in on that particular one, or do you or if it's said regarded as closed off and it's in program, where to from there, from a customer point of view or from a councillor point of view?
Yeah, through you, actually, a really good point. I meant to touch on that. So one of the things that we've asked for is, say you should get a response which gives you one of those answers and tells you what it, and I do take the point that people see the pothole. The issue is I have to leave 8,000, 9,000 customer requests open until I fix every defect on the network, which just, it won't happen. That's just one reality of that, or how that actually occurs. One of the things that we have asked for, and we've been working with Susan and her team, is that we can actually track the metric of what the responses were. So when we actually go through, how many customer requests were put into those defects. And the other thing, to answer your question, what we've asked the team to do is, if it adds to the maintenance management system, we can record that that was a customer request also. So they're looking into that at the moment, so that if we've got a customer request for Stonelands Road, we can see that those customer requests have been moved into that high priority program also. So it allows us, if you ring up about Stonelands Road, and which is what we want people to do, because if they report it to us and they've been responded to, and a defect has got worse, we would like to know about that, because at the end of the day, it's a very, very large network. We don't have, 400 staff running around inspecting it. So happy to take your point. I think it's something we probably need to work together in the new council about how we can, look at how we respond to managing the network, and happy to do that. And I think one of the key things that we're getting ready at the moment is having a look at the metrics, particularly for the new council, to say, well, this is the state of play, which was what we did earlier in the year, and work through what does that actually look like, because it needs to be workable for us and also needs to be workable for the council and the community. And I fully understand that.
Yep, no, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Schumacher.
Just had a couple of questions. Thanks for the updated spreadsheet. Perfect timing. I just wanted to check, in terms of the cycle for the routine inspections, do we inspect every road, and what is the actual cycle for that? Is it once a quarter, once 6 months?
Yeah, so the minimum that we do, there is a hierarchy for it, which
Yep.
I think we provided in the previous slides. I'm happy to take you through that again. It'll depend on the road. Some roads are annual, some roads are, I think, 6 monthly. TMR is a much higher standard because obviously you've got a higher traffic volume through there. We recently did a run. I'll have to go back and check, but we did a bulk run last time. I think I put 7 or 8. I think I reported that to council. We did about 7 or 8 officers at once, going through. So there is a rolling program for that. The big thing for us is, I think we need to look at going forward. And again, it's something that we're preparing for at the moment, is how do we actually best manage the network? Are we inspecting enough? Do we have the right resources to actually do that? And also going through and seeing what volume of completion that we get through as well. So, because there's one thing to inspect the network, but you also need to look at how you address your customer requests, because if you look at the graph there, that's a very, very large volume coming in on a very small group of people. And what happens is you get further and further behind. So particularly if you have a look at that, and I'll just note for council, if you have a look at the jump in January, that's from wet weather. And, there's a major impact on there as well. So all of a sudden you've got 600 customer requests coming through the door to a group of 3 or 4.
And just with the potholes issue, and we all see them. We all drive the network. They come up and we fill them, and they come up again when it rains. at what point do you, through that maintenance system, and I understand this might be some work that you're doing, do you fill them so many times and then determine, like in many cases, the seal is shot, like I can see that grass is growing through it, or, you know, it's clear water is getting in. Is there in your system some point where the inspectors determine, do they have the authority to report to you that you'll no longer fill those potholes, you will actually dig out that section or prioritise it for dig out and renewal works, or how does that work?
Yeah, through you, Acting Mayor, that is an issue for us that we're working through. So if you recall discussion with council, we did allocate resources to do that. We haven't been able to recruit. We've gone out to the market now for 4 new engineers, not new engineers, but replacement engineers. We've been unable to fill those. And a key outcome of that, and we've had Malcolm obviously on the team, we're still actively trying to recruit people that we want that to happen. So what should really happen is that they should be inspected, they get temporary repaired or they get repaired. They'll either be in a capital works program or they'll be temporary repaired. But then we allocated money this year to do more permanent repairs on repeat offenders as such.
Yes.
We do have a draft program that we have put together for that. So we have been doing that. But again, actively, we would want that system to happen in its cycle. And once we get some backsides in seats, we would like to see that happen over the next term, that we have a system where we can actually get this data together and come through and say, well, look, these are the, we recommend that you spend $1 million on permanent repairs and these ones which will reduce, some things. So, because at the end of the day, they either get temporary repaired, they'll get a permanent small repair, or they'll have to wait for capital works to remove that defect. And it is an ever-ending cycle, because the reality is there's not enough money. There never is. And, everyone's aware of that, but we do our best to manage through there. And the other thing that's hurt us, obviously, is the ongoing rainfall as well. So stuff that you have repaired, we'd like to see last. And, we've, for council's awareness, we were activated last week, I think, for the January event that's occurred from the rainstorms that came through. We've got a whole range of network issues that are repeating again on us, but we need to go through that cycle again as well.
And just my final question, just when we did the budget, we sat down and I remember there was an astronomical number of defects in the system, the backlog of defects. It would be interesting to know or understand how, through that reframing of that system, have we addressed that? Has that backlog grown, or have we started to address? I went looking for your slideshow that you gave to all councillors, and I can't find it. But I know there's some really valuable information about the backlog of defects that, has been sitting on the books, certainly way before any of us were here at this table. And I guess I was trying to understand, with what we're doing, are we starting to see a decrease in that backlog, or is it actually increasing?
Through the chair, my initial discussions with the team, we're preparing that information now. We're actually running draft budgets, at the moment, to look at, what that might actually look like. My gut feel, councillor, is increased. I think that's why you're seeing so many complaints coming through. So I think it's something that we need to get a proper metric around. And again, the quality of your data is improving all the time. And we have had, with Malcolm there as a designated resource on staff, I might add, someone in charge of the maintenance group. It's important that we have a strong leader in there who can put those things together and make sure that the business is being informed. So we'll continue to improve it, but we will have new data. We're aiming to have, or updated data in March to start walking through those discussions. It is a snapshot in time too, so around what that looks like. But it would be fair to say, I don't think the backlog will be reducing.
No, and probably with that data, when you get that, it would be interesting to see if in some way through your maintenance system, whether you can determine how defects have actually been prioritised, to see if there are any learnings through that can feed into the new program. Because certainly, I imagine customer request is one element of determining how defect, but I also know safety, higher, lower order road, those sorts of things. It'd be good to get some understanding of what the metrics are when your bucket of funding for defects is so small, how you best serve such a large network with such a small bucket.
Yeah, through the chair. So, and that's one thing that just talking to the team yesterday, we'll be looking at that, because the question comes is, why do we not fix everything? The fact of the matter is that, you know, we'll go to an area, we'll do as much as we can, but if we've got competing high priorities across the network, we will move. And that's in the fact sheet too. So and that was always there. You know, at the end of the day, is you can only fix, you've got to go on a priority basis, and you try and do as much as you can while you're there. And the reality is, again, like I said, there's never enough money. You know, we don't have unlimited resources. I think we looked at an additional pave line a year or two ago, or whatever it might be, and, you know, we couldn't afford that. So the crew do the best they have.
Just with my final statement, just with DTMR learnings, you know, they have also, you know, the state government has an enormous backlog. And I know in the meetings we had with former DG Scales, you know, he was quite proud of the fact he was starting to chip away at that, but it had taken him a long time, even with the advanced systems and things that the state have, they have these challenges. Just a thought, you know, I know we have a good relationship with the state government and the department, but are there ways, you know, with our web rock of councils, our Wide Bay Burnett Regional Organisation of Councils, or with that state team to sort of take some of their learnings from the way they deal with, like, this is not new, and factor some of that into our systems as well as just some thinking.
Through the chair. So we did a comparison last time we were here between council and TMR.
Yep.
Very similar system, different intervention levels. The one thing I'll say is that if it doesn't meet the initial intervention or the high priority intervention, it stays indefinitely on TMR's backlog as well. So they don't actually, it comes down to funding. I can say, you know, we have an arrangement with TMR, but they're in the same boat, and it's not, again, it's similar to, it's not new to us.
No.
It's everywhere. You know, their backlog exceeds their budget, and so do ours. But it's one of those things I think we need to understand, and particularly, you know, I keep saying about the new council, but one of the key things we'll be looking to do is say, well, you know, if we were looking to reduce road maintenance through capital and those sort of things, what are some of the what's our new strategy? We did the unsealed roads a couple of years ago. We reshedded, so we had gravel to grade. You know, we don't get nowhere near as lit up as what we were when I first arrived in that space. But sealed roads is now an issue, and I don't deny that. I think it's just something that we need to work as a team to come up with how we solve those problems and mitigate that. And similar to what we're saying about the customer service, what is the response that we want to give, and how does that actually work so that everyone works?
Interesting parcel of work. Thank you for the briefing and the opportunity.
Thanks, councillor. And you're dead right. I was waiting for you to use the word money in that comparison with us and TMR. But TMR made that big improvement because they got a bucket load of money, and Neil was quite happy to get that and use that. Mate, just a couple of things. The other thing that I want cleared up today is everyone's commenting on Facebook, and there's people that are reacting and saying they're going to fix potholes and all that, circling the potholes. Now, just tell me, do council staff circle potholes, or the only marks we put on the road is where we're going to dig out with failures or pushes or all that sort of stuff? Because commentary on Facebook and all this other stuff, I don't take much notice of Facebook, but that's what they're saying and people are responding to it. Can you clarify that for me, please?
Yeah, through the chair. So probably a couple of things, and we did make some changes. So firstly, first answer is no, we don't. In short, we don't circle potholes, and I saw that one day, and I actually got up the guys, and it happened in my street where someone circled a pothole instead of fixing. And there is an assumption that it's council that circles the pothole when they do an inspection and they move. No, it's not us. We don't do that. What we do is we will mark out works with a spot, so you'll see spot marks on the road. We do that for two reasons. So either before we're measuring up for flood damage, or we're measuring up to actually commence work on a section of road. So I saw one the other day on my way to Boondoom. I actually stopped at Tingora, and I saw the circle paint marks in the toilets there, and it had the spots around. Someone has come along and circled that. It'll be a member of the public, but there's actual spot marks around that. That is a flood damage measure up for Reaper. We actually changed the majority of the time. We've actually changed to pink paint now for Reaper because it's harder for people to actually see on the road, if you can believe that or not, because there was an expectation if they saw white paint marks, we were immediately going to go and start for work. But the other thing, the reason why we do measure that and put those Reaper marks down is we take a photo of it, and if the defect grows, we have to demonstrate to QRA that there's been additional damage to that. And you'll see that on some roads where we've gone through, Harris Road as well. There's nothing more frustrating, and we actually have a new customer service coordinator in my group. We changed one of our admin teams to give customer service a focus. And I actually asked the same question the other day, tell me what you know about roads, because she helped us update our fact sheet. And yet it's everyone thinks it's, you know, we circle and that sort of stuff, but it isn't us. But I can understand why people do think that, thinking that other people don't mark out the roads and that sort of stuff. But generally what you'll see, and also on the TMR roads, you'll see white spots where you'll see yellow lines down and stuff like that, and you might see a circle. That will be TMR coming through, marking out defects for flood damage. They also might be doing reseal prep and those sort of things. Again, I was on the Oakenden Road on Sunday. There's lots of little marks over it and stuff like that. And you can see the defects there. That a lot of that is TMR flood damage, or TMR have gone and marked that through. We may have marked some stuff on their behalf. The only time that you will generally, and I won't say it hasn't happened, is you might see a main road inspector put a white circle on a pothole or something like that, and then they'll ring up and say, I've marked that pothole, I want that measured up or repaired or whatever it might be. But generally, no, we don't. So, but if you do see the white marks down there, there is an explanation there. It's generally, we normally will spot it in a square, if that makes sense. So does that answer the...
Yeah, and this is probably a direct question, you can take it on notice, mate. People are saying that there's a huge amount of waste when we go out, we're doing potholes and all that. We've had this discussion in the chambers, everyone's been a part of it. Like trying to get that, the jet patcher and the pave liner all sort of working in, you know, together and following each other around and all that sort of stuff. Has that made any progress towards that sort of stuff getting, and they're saying that there's waste, like in your, like, and I know it's a on the spot question, I totally get it if you want to come back next month, but can you see where it, like obviously there's room for improvement, but you know, for us to go out and answer the community when they're saying to us, oh, there's so much, we see so much waste, there's this and that and all that sort of stuff. Is there any advice you can give us as councillors to go and respond to those comments? And you can take that on notice, mate. I know it's, you can talk to us later off screen. It's because it's only for our own personal benefit, councillors, to be able to address that. I've got my own version of it, but there's other people that, you know, obviously we're getting different stories in the community.
No, through Chair, I'll give him probably my best answer, and I've had this discussion. Like road mate, I think council knows I'm very passionate about road maintenance, and I think we need to do, like any business, I think we can do things better and more efficient, and I don't deny that, but that's no different from, you know, anyone in there, either in, you know, you could do a lot of things efficiently in your personal life too, but you do your best. I think we do the best we can with the staff that, you know, that, and the resourcing that we have. I think there's our biggest improvement that we need to make is understand, like all the customer requests that we get, whether it's for water or for roads or want to understand what is the root cause of that. And I think that's a thing that I think would be good for, you know, our team to work with the new council and to solve that, because it's an ongoing issue, and, you know, it's easy to pick different things, but a lot of times it does come down to root causes and symptoms, and we can always be more efficient. But I think the reality is we have improved a lot, particularly even over the last 12 months and even over the last 3 months, and the people are challenged with that. So, but I think it's important to understand once and for all what is the true impact of, you know, particularly of inflation and those sort of things, if that helps.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I think we've had good discussion around those both questions. So we'll go to the question number 1 on notice. We just need to do them together. Okay, so both questions, yeah, Councillor Duff will move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter, we go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, we go on to 19 now. It's a confidential section, and the officer's recommendation. Sorry, 20. 19's nil. So number 20, confidential section. The officer's recommendation, the council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 20.1, development of 1 Pound Street, Kingaroy. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 254JG of the Local Government Regulation. The council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest, as it deals with negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government, for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government. 20.2 Mergen Visitor Information Centre. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 254JG of the local government regulation, and the council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest as it deals with negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government. And 20.3, proposal to write off special rates charges on assessments 12927/29000/001, 12921/75000/001, 12905/16000/001. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 254JD of the local government regulation, and the council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest as it deals with rating concessions. Do I have a mover? Councillor Henson, second to Councillor Duff. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll now go into confidential. Okay, I'd like to move a motion that we come out of confidential back into the open, seconded by councillor Henson. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. We'll now deal with confidential 20.1, and the officer's recommendation is that council resolve to amend resolution 2023/434 by inserting a requirement for council to develop an expression of interest to divest of 1 Pound Street, Kingaroy, Lot 13 on RP 814986 as part of the tender process prior to inviting written tenders for a proposed mixed-use development or development of commercial and/or residential use. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, second by Councillor Potter. Any comments or questions? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm speaking against this because I would like to include community groups in the tender process, because I've had a community group suggest a big multi-purpose sporting complex would be an amazing thing to happen, given the Olympic the Games coming to Brisbane. So I want to add that we go out for community as well. So not, sorry, is that? So I want to add that we go out to community as well in this, to give the community an option to put forward their expressions of interest as well.
Okay. Just you need to think about your wording, councillor, because anyone can submit an EOI, which is not what you're asking. You're asking for alternative community use with council gifting the block to them?
Yes.
Or just alternative community use?
So for an alternative community use, yes, absolutely. Can we add for alternative community use as well?
Just a point of order. Just being in caretaker mode, you're actually amending a motion
Yep.
about a large, like a potentially large contract, a tender. I actually question whether we can actually do.
We can.
We can.
So council can initiate a process in caretaker. It can run a process in caretaker. It can't decide in
Okay,
caretaker.
Thank you for confirming.
Yep. No, and it'd be an amendment, Chair. So yep.
Okay, so Councillor Duff.
Could I move that as an amendment?
Yep, so move your amendment to the original motion, and what do you want to add to that?
That I ask CEO Mark to help me with the wording, please.
If I heard you right, it would be just after development of commercial and/or residential use. So after the where the full stop is, or an alternative community use.
So, with Councillor Duff's intention, she wants that land to be gifted to community. Does that need to be noted in there or not?
So not necessarily. They might come forward with a suggestion that they'd put some money towards the land as well. Like, I'm not saying necessarily total gifting.
Okay, no worries. So you're happy with the addition there, Councillor Duff?
Yes, I am.
Where Tiana is just about to put it there. There it is. So we'll go to the vote on this one. We'll deal with this one. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Potter?
Can I speak, councillor? Amendment?
Okay, so we'll go for and against on this, and we'll keep it brief because we have another meeting that we're building close towards. Not that this is not important, and I'll give you every time you want, but surely we can make our point in a 1 or 2 minute speech. Councillor Erkins?
My only concern is we have debated this before on what we wanted to do with Pound Street. We debated, we've had people come and put submissions and ideas to us before. We had come to a decision on it, and I appreciate that Councillor Duff says she voted against it, but by the same token, I believe that it has been decided, and I just don't think we should be debating the whole issue again. The matter's been moved and passed, and I think that's where that should stay.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other comments before we go to the vote on this? The amended resolution is that council resolved to amend resolution 2023/434 by inserting a requirement for council to develop an expression of interest to divest of 1 Pound Street, Kingaroy, Lot 13 on RP 814986 as part of the tender process prior to inviting written tenders for a proposed mixed-use development of commercial and/or residential use or alternative community use. Councillor Shoemaker, did you have any comment? Okay, no more. We're going to a vote on the amendment. All those in favour? We have Councillor Duff and Councillor Potter in favour. All those against? Councillor Shoemaker, Erkins, Hanchin and Jones. The amendment is defeated 4 votes to 2. We'll now go back to the original motion, which pretty much reads without the last little bit. So that the council resolved to amend resolution 2023/434 by inserting a requirement for council to develop an expression of interest to divest of 1 Pound Street, Kingaroy, Lot 13 on RP 814986 as part of the tender process prior to inviting written tenders for a proposed mixed-use development of commercial and/or residential use. Do we have a mover? We've got, that's Councillor Hanchin and seconded by Councillor Potter. Any comments there, Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I will keep it brief. This is a very valuable lot of land. It does have potential to create jobs and growth in our region and meet an emerging residential housing need, which we know is a priority. I'm very mindful that the funds derived from this purchase could in fact be invested in much needed infrastructure and community upgrades across other lots of land and facilities and things that council owns. Currently, we are running this budget at a deficit and we are not in a position to give away valuable assets like these, not when we know our region is on the cusp of some really exciting growth with the development of the Lady Flo Jockey-Peterson Community Hospital, only just there, other residential developments in the pipeline. This is a really exciting time for our region, and this land really does need to be used for the intents that were derived out of our land use assessment. And I do believe we've got some exciting opportunities ahead of us for our region. We have got a growing population that is going to need services and support. By 2040, we know that this region could reach 40,000 people. We are not in a position where we can take the only available lot of land for principal use zoning and give it away. I do believe there are other options. I do believe there are some great options with some of the parkland and reserves that we've identified where sporting groups and facilities, the Rail Trail Reserve, there are some really exciting opportunities to partner with our community and to make sure our community has the spaces and the places it needs to be a vibrant, active community. I just do not feel that this lot is it. I feel this lot needs to be, and I have the support of my community. It needs to be used for the purpose of creating jobs and meeting our emerging growing community needs. So I'm supportive of the motion. I think the EOI is just an extension on the process purely so that we can go to tender. And finally, it would be amazing to make a decision on this lot of land because it's sat on our books for far too long in my opinion, and it is hindering the growth of this town and this region. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other comments before we go to the vote? Councillor Duff, briefly.
Thank you. Yes, the reason why I'm not voting for this is because a couple of things. One is that, as Councillor Erkins mentioned in the closed session of the meeting, that we can't guarantee, like if we sell it to someone, they could sit on like the block of land that sits on the outskirts of Kingaroy now for years. We had the opportunity, and I'm of having the RSL gifted to the RSL for units, which would have created additional housing. The reason why I wanted to add community was because, I mean, they could put forward, have another go at trying to get the new council to support them putting forward their suggestion of having that RSL units there, and other options like I mentioned before of a sporting complex or whatever. I think we need to open it up and let the new council decide whether they want to to work with community, because just because someone comes forward and says that they're going to do what we've ticked the boxes for, mixed-use development and or commercial residential, there's no guarantee that they can't buy it, as Councillor Erkin suggested, and turn it into something totally different. So that's why I wanted to add the community into it, to give us options.
Thanks,
you.
Councillor. Councillor Erkins.
I'd like to also draw attention to the fact that if we do something with that block to a non-profit organisation, we also no longer collect rates from that block. And I think, really everybody in this community knows that, our finances, we need to do what we can to keep our finances to be able to deliver the services that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just briefly, Councillor Shoemaker, then we'll go to Councillor Henson.
I just want to confirm further to the debate that we did actually gift an alternate lot of land to the RSL. Is that true and correct? Yes, and we have actually been working with the RSL to achieve similar outcomes that they've put forward to council. Yes, true and correct. And at the end of the day, the new council will have the same power and authority this council has had, and it will be able to decide what it would like to do with that block of land. And I really do hope it can make a decision quite quickly, because, quite frankly, we cannot afford to just let these opportunities that are on our doorstep beckoning for our attention just pass us by. This is too good of an opportunity right now. The timing is perfect. We need a decision. Let's just get it done.
Thank you. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Through you, we're elected in here to represent our community, and the community I talk to are not in favour, and the ratepayers I talk to are certainly not in favour of gifting this away to anybody. I think it's one of the most valuable pieces of real estate, not just in Kingaroy but in the South Burnett. And I'd like to think, as Councillor Shoemaker has alluded to, that in time that something a little bit more beneficial to our community can be bought and built on that property.
Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think it's great that we're having this discussion, and I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, General Manager, with regards to the RSL, I do believe they've got a planning application in at the moment with regards to some units up in Alfred Street, if I'm correct. Yeah, so, and they've got quite a few units going up there at the moment, so, which is fantastic news. And I hope that that moves forward for them. But with regards to this particular block of land, it would have been good to see community have another go, because we did put this out to expression of interest back in 2020, and the community came back to us, and we did have a few in there, but it was all the gifting of land. So look, I'm happy to go with the motion now as it stands. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. And this motion does not restrict anybody from putting in an expression of interest. Let's just get that clear. No one is cut out of it. It is open to everybody, community organisations, groups, or whatever. It's just a process. Okay. No, Councillor,
CEO Mark
is that
said,
wrong?
Point of order.
Can anybody,
Point
can
of
anybody
order.
put that in?
No, CEO Mark said no, we have to change the wording, or community can't put.
All right, so to save time, anyone can submit an expression of interest for the purposes of what's in the resolution. If I was going to submit, so the alternative wording, if you were going to gift it or look at an alternative use, which is, this is, as I discussed before, has been previously resolved by council. All this is a mechanical motion to put a step in that actually calls for submissions first before the full detailed tender, or an expression of interest first. But yeah, it is our preferred, if I put an expression of interest in for something that wasn't a commercial, mixed commercial residential use, or would be a non-conforming tender, and council would have to decide whether it would accept that submission.
Yeah, so my apologies. That's what I was trying to get across. Thanks for the clarification. Anybody can put it in for what's in their commercial and or residential. And what does a sporting complex fall under?
Sport, to be cheeky. No, it would be possible. It would probably be a non-conforming tender, and so it'd be up to council whether it chose to look at it or not.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. We've all had a conversation. Councillor Henson, you are the mover. You don't want any closing comments?
I thank you.
Okay, we'll go there. We've got the motion moved by Councillor Henson, seconded by Councillor Potter, that Council resolve to amend Resolution 2023/434 by inserting a requirement of Council to develop an expression of interest to divest of 1 Pound Street, Kingaroy, Lot 13 on RP8 14986 as part of the tender process prior to the inviting written tenders for a proposed mixed-use development of commercial and/or residential use. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? We have Councillor Shoemaker, Erkins, Potter, Henson and Jones in favour. Against? Councillor Duff is against. The motion is carried 5 votes to 1. Thank you. We now go to 20.2. This is the Mergen Visitor Information Centre, and the officer's recommendation is 1, that South Burnett Regional Council lift Mergen Visitor Information Centre from the table. Do we need to vote that? Yes, so we do have a mover. Thanks, Councillor Duff. Second, Councillor Erkins. All those in favour? Unanimous. And we deal now with item number 2 of that particular motion, which is that the South Burnett Regional Council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to negotiate, finalise and execute an appropriate arrangement with Mergen Business and Development Association, Inc., on terms and conditions that the Chief Executive Officer considers are reasonable to Council for the co-location to the Mergen Visitor Information Centre on a 12-month trial. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Erkins. We go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. 20.3, the one we've been looking for, the last one. It is a proposal to write off special rates charges, and the officer's recommendation is that Council write off any unrecovered special rates charges on properties associated with assessments 12921/75000/001 and 12927/29000/001 and 12905/16000/001 if successfully sold through the sale of land process.
I move, I don't know how this, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah.
An alternate motion?
Yes, Councillor Erkins, and you can work with the CEO for the wording on this one.
That I'd like to move that council hold the blocks of land until we're in a position to put them up for rate arrears again to cover all costs. Well, we don't accept the, I'll leave it in your hands.
Just General Manager, and I'll throw a rock at me. I would think that Council would just receive the report for information and the normal processes then would flow through. This would be the exception action, so it's to do something different. So if this isn't passed, all those other charges would just have to be recovered as a matter of course. So yeah, so if you just received the report for information.
So, okay, I'll move that we receive the report then for information. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Erkins has moved. The officer's recommendation is that we receive the report for information. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Potter. We go to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. That brings to a close the general meeting for February. Thank you all for attending and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.